Hi, I'm Matthew McCabe. Welcome to Miracle Voices. Each episode, we will be delving into stories of forgiveness, healing, and transformation that have come about from integrating the principles of the book A Course in Miracles. If you want to learn more about A Course in Miracles, visit www.acim.org. If you'd like to visit the Miracle Voices site, please go to www.miraclevoices.org. If you feel inspired to make a love offering, please visit us at miraclevoices.org/donate. All donations go to support the work of the Foundation for Inner Peace, the publisher of A Course in Miracles. Now here's your program.
Hey, you out there. I always forget they're listeners. If you're one of these listeners to our podcast, Miracle Voices, come on in and be a guest with us. We won't bite. And if we do, you can forgive us. And there's forgiveness story. If you're interested in submitting your forgiveness story, visit miraclevoices.org/forum and come on, let's play.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Miracle Voices. This is your co-host, Matt McCabe, here with my co-host, Tam Morgan. Tam, how you doing this week?
Really good. Great week. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing very well.
Okay.
And I'm glad we're back and we're everybody's ears again. How intimate this is.
Yeah. Just us not knowing that anyone else is listening.
That's right. And I'm really excited about our guest today, Thomas Rich-Caverly. Thomas, welcome to Miracle Voices.
Hello, thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I really am.
Right.
That's new.
Yes. And Thomas, where are you joining us from? Where are you sitting in the world right now?
I am in New Jersey. I am approximately 14 miles outside of Manhattan. So, I can be in the middle of Manhattan in less than a half hour if I have to.
Oh, good. Good. Well, Thomas, we'd like to start out. Just tell us how A Course in Miracles came into your life.
Yeah. So, in 2005, I found myself in a place where it was a low point in my life, and I was dealing with depression and anxiety, and I came to a point where I just knew something had to change, so I decided to start reading books, self-help books, and I did. I started reading books, and a few books paved my way for the course, I believe. And some of those books were the trilogy of, and you may have heard of them. There was a trilogy at the time. And of course, he went on to write more books. But Conversations with God, parts 1, 2, and 3 by Neil Donald Walsh. Those books really spoke to me. And they made a difference in my life. And then I went on from there. I went on to read other books by Dr. Wayne Dyer and other self-help, writers. And of course, reading some of these books, I heard the word A Course in Miracles used, although I didn't know what that was. That was in 2005 when I started that journey. In 2007, I found myself in a bookstore, as I often did at that time. It was one of my favorite things to do. I'd take my kids, we'd go to the bookstore, they'd go in their section, I'd go in mine. It was always the spiritual or self-help section that I would find myself in. And this one time in 2007, I looked up at the top shelf, and, I've heard the story said many times by many different course students that I didn't find the course found me. And that happens to be my experience as well, because when I looked up to that top shelf, there it was, the Course in Miracles. And when I laid my eyes on the book for the first time, for a moment, I don't know how long the moment lasted, to be honest with you. It felt like an eternity, really. Everything in the bookstore, literally. And I've never had an experience like this before. But at that point in time, the only person in that bookstore was me and that book on the top shelf. It should have just jumped off the top shelf into my hands, because everything around me, like I said, just disappeared. Everything went silent. And it was just me and the course in that for however long that lasted, not very long. And then when I took the book off the shelf, it's like everything came back. That everyone in the bookstore was still there. The customers were still there. The noise, everything came back. So there I was with this book in my hand, and I knew before I even opened it up that it was going to make a difference for me. And like I said, that was 2007, and I haven't stopped since. Reading it, ingesting it, going through the lessons, many, many times. I've been studying this course for 19 years, over 19 years now, and I love it. It's made a huge difference in my life, and it's a life read for me. It's a life journey. It's something that I will take with me till my last day here on earth. And because that's how much I enjoy it. To me, it's a beautiful work of art and a masterpiece. And it's also practical and helpful. And like I said, has made so much of a difference in my life. Um, and I'll just touch on, when I found the book, I read the text. I started at the beginning, and I read the text, and somewhere in the beginning there, I remember it saying, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it says it doesn't matter whether you do the workbook first or the manual for teachers first or the text first. But I happen to have read it in order, and then a few years later, after having gone through the workbook a couple of times, I came to that part in the introduction where I realized what it said. The first thing it says in the introduction, and I'll read it straight from the introduction. It says, "A theoretical foundation such as the text provides is necessary as a framework to make the exercises in this workbook meaningful." So right in the beginning there, in the introduction of the workbook, it was telling me that it's a good thing I read that text first. And it really was a good thing that I read the text first, and I'll tell you why real quick on that. When I finished the text, it was 6 months of reading every day. Like I said, I dove in, I was taking notes, and I was reading it for hours every day and just loving it and going over it and highlighting and, doing all those things that we course students often do. And when I found myself at the other end of the text, I was just amazed and in love with it. And I decided right there that I was going to start the workbook. And I did. I started the workbook, and I got to lesson 21, and I had this, and lesson 21 is I am determined to see things differently. And I had this strong resistance at that time, so much so that I pushed the book away from me across the desk. And I was just drained of all energy. I was completely exhausted by this resistance that I was feeling to it. And I didn't open the book back up for, I'd say, maybe 3 weeks to a month, but during that time, I decided to look online because I read the text by myself. I didn't know any other course students. I was studying it alone, and I felt stuck there at lesson 21, and I didn't know what to do. So I decided to, and this was before Facebook, and so I decided to check. I heard of this chat service called Pal Talk, and I decided to check Pal Talk for some reason. And when I did check Pal Talk, I found a community there called ACIM Gather. And ACIM Gather was run by a man named Doug Fishman, who I know has recently been on your podcast here. And I came in, I was welcomed by the community very graciously. And I told Dove, I don't know if Dove remembers this, but I told Dove about the resistance that I felt and feeling like I was stuck there at 21. And I said, but you know what? I've decided I'm going to start over, and I'm going to, try the lessons again. And Dove said to me, don't start over. He said, pick up exactly where you left off and continue going. And that's what I did. I continued going. There was no more resistance. I made it to the other side of the lessons, of the workbook lessons. And then I decided to take 6 months off from the lessons so that the next time I started the lessons, I would be starting on January 1st, along with a lot of the community. I wanted to be on the same page, if you will. So Dove, I don't know. I don't know if Dove remembers that, or And I don't think I ever had the opportunity to remind him of that. And if he hears this, I hope he realizes that he made a big difference. Just that little piece, just that little suggestion that he gave for me, not to start over, but to pick up where I left off, really made a difference in my life and my healing journey, if you will.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why? Why do you think that made a difference rather than just starting again? What was the difference you think it made?
Well, I'm not sure, but I think if I would have started again, that maybe by the time I would have got to 21, I would have been exhausted again, and drained again, and felt stuck again, and had that resistance again. But I'll never know for sure because I listened to his suggestion. So
I've heard this where the ego voice kind of comes in and says, you didn't do that very well, and this is all building on each other. All these lessons are building on each other. You're going to have a weak foundation. You better go back and start fresh so you can really build your knowledge well. But then it can keep doing that over and over and over. Now you're on lesson 195, and you better start over. Like these doubts, right?
right,
And then
yeah,
then it's like we're tuned into the doubts.
exactly,
So I
exactly.
totally get why he said that. It makes sense.
Mm,
Yeah. I didn't get it at the time, but I do now. So
thank
uh,
you.
and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, we'd love to hear your forgiveness story.
Sure. So I have so many forgiveness stories. My life is made up of many stories of forgiveness and healing. But there is one significant one that kind of jumps out to me, and it was once again early on in my healing journey, and it was I found myself I was having a bad day, so I'll tell you, there was some healing that was happening. And I was putting the forgiveness tools to work, but I was still didn't quite grasp it. And I was still struggling with a lot of the ideas. And, I would still have a lot of bad days at that time. And I found myself sitting across from a friend of mine in a room in real life, not online. And he was just providing me that space to air out. And so that's what I did. I was just telling him all these things that I thought about myself and about the world that were really having an effect on me. And, I don't remember specifically all the things I said, nor does it really matter. What I do know is this: I was hating on myself. I was coming down hard on myself, and I was believing all those thoughts that I was having. But I was able to air them out. He was providing me that space. And as I was airing them out, I'm sitting across it. And like, I don't know if I said this, but he wasn't a course student, not at all. But as I was saying all these things, and he wasn't talking, he wasn't responding, he was just listening. Um, I didn't see any agreement coming back from him. I'm looking him in his eyes, and I'm emptying my soul on the table in front of us. And what I saw from him was not disagreement, but non-agreement. He didn't agree with the things I was saying about myself and the world, but he wasn't arguing with me. It wasn't a disagreement. Like I said, the only word that came into my mind afterwards when I reflected on it was the term non-agreement. He didn't agree with all these things I was saying about myself, right? And during that interaction, while I'm sitting there at the table, I remember having the thought, could I be wrong about all these things? That's what his non-agreement did for me. He gave me a gift. That gift was a miracle, a true miracle, because it interjected a thought in my mind. Could I be wrong about all these things? Because he did not agree with these things I was saying about myself. And really, he's another one who gave me a miracle that I haven't been able to express because I haven't seen him, in, 15, 17 years. So we lost touch. So I haven't been able to express the gratitude for him doing that. And he probably wouldn't even remember. He might not even remember the conversation. It was significant to me. Doesn't mean it was significant to him. He might not know the miracle he offered that day in that room. And like I said, this wasn't a course student. It was just someone who was very self-aware, and had already gone through his own healing journey, outside of the course. But it allowed me to take this and incorporate it into where I was at the time. He saved me from myself that day. And I recognize him today as my savior, and I remember also having another thought that said, if I can only give that gift that he gave to me, he saw beyond all those things I was saying about myself, all those terrible things when I was hating on myself. He saw beyond all that to the true me. And I remember having that thought that if I can only give this to all those I come into contact with who are coming down hard on themselves, and that was my goal. That from that point forward, I said, I got to bring this miracle that was given to me to every interaction I have, if I can, and of course, there's been a long time as far as years go in between that and where I am today. And I have and still have then and still do try to bring that into every interaction, whether it's with clients, friends, or just anyone I meet. And I fall short sometimes, I'll say that. And when I do fall short, I'm able to look at that as well, utilize that for learning and healing, and, pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep it moving, make my amends where I need to, and forgive where I need to forgive, including myself. So, yeah, so that's my healing and my forgiveness and healing story. With that, with Eddie's, his name was Eddie, with Eddie's non-agreement of all those things I was saying on myself, I was able to finally find some forgiveness for myself. I'll also add, and that was also the beginning of some real forgiveness work where I began forgiving everything in my life, everyone and everything, institutions, my old, the school system I came up in, teachers, parents, principals, police, whatever it might be, all through my life. I've just started, anytime something would pop into my mind that I thought needed forgiveness, and it was all of it. I'll tell you that, it was all of it. I would apply forgiveness to it. And I got to a point where I literally was free. I felt that freedom that forgiveness offers. And it's a beautiful thing. And I just want to stay there as much as I possibly can in that free space. Once all is forgiven, what's left to keep me up at night? Nothing. Forgiveness really does offer us freedom. And this course, it gives us such a beautiful way to apply that concept of forgiveness, active forgiveness into our lives. So, yeah.
Very
Wonderful.
interesting. Eddie refused to mirror your thoughts back to you, and he held up a different mirror instead. His thoughts.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I really, really love that line. I think we should use it. Once all is forgiven, what's left to keep us up at night?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Great. Yeah.
And that came from my own experience as well. That line came from my own experience. I used to have trouble sleeping. Now I don't. I could sleep at night. I could put my head on the pillow and the thoughts don't start racing like they used to. The rumination doesn't begin when my head hits the pillow. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, that rumination is serious. It comes in and it's just like Tilter World, I remember that ride, the carnivals. It just throws you around and says, "Oh my God, it's all so terrible. It's darkness. Look, oh my God. Can you believe it?" Yeah.
The ride itself just makes me throw up.
Right.
Every metaphor about it can bring that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's one more insight into my healing journey and as far as forgiveness goes that I forgot that I want to mention because I think it's important. And I do bring this to my clients as well. You know, that when I forgive, um, I can forgive someone and love them from afar. You know what I mean? I can when I forgive, it's so that I can move on with my life. You know, I'm forgiving for me. It doesn't mean I have to subject myself to more abuse or a cycle of dysfunctionality. I don't have to stay trapped in that. I can step outside of that and still forgive that whole situation. And I'm paraphrasing Gary Renard from his book Disappearance of the Universe, which I read many years ago when it came out, you know, but he said something like, and it stuck with me. Uh, he said, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you have to do lunch, you know, something like that,
Uh-huh.
which I thought was great. And it's so true. I can forgive you and not have to subject myself to more abuse or more insanity or fill in the blank, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's so perfect for our world right now to hear that, just to see how we evolve, because so many people are working remotely, and they can, and they never used to be able to, and it's remote forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You don't have to
Right.
stick yourself into the job place to do your work.
Yeah.
True.
It's and sometimes you do, if you're told you do. You know,
Yes.
it's not a hard, fast rule. It's, there are, you know, I'm just gonna use, an example for me, was people there were people who could not understand why I would fly back, east from California to take care of my father who was on his way out, and he was very he could be very verbally abusive, get really, really difficult, and sometimes it was very difficult to withstand. His lack of control was trying to control me and yell at me in it, and there was sometimes it felt unbearable. People would say, "Why do you do that?" And my answer was because I heard I was to, and heard I was to for there were 2 world of form reasons. One was, because he was in fear, and I was not, and I could be there to love him through his transition, and the other was, it was one of the ways that I got to use for knowing my personality, even amidst coursework, um, to not feel guilt after he was gone. And that was like a bird in flight for me, because had I not gone to him, not made my peace while I was with him, yes, I could have done it long after he was gone in an instant, but doing that work in the level of form totally helped me completely release when he did leave how complete we were. And that was my path, but that would not be to recommend to someone who's being abused to go ahead and withstand that unless you're bringing a different consciousness with you in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what this course offers, you know, a different way to see it and a different way to bring that healing, you know. Um, it's a
Yes,
beautiful thing.
and that
Go
it's
ahead.
in the way where it's called self-guided, it comes for you with spirit in your own path, and it interweaves with your path, and it instructs you what to do and how to heal. And, as that, and you can ask it help, it meaning Holy Spirit. It really does work with you as you instead of generic.
That's
Although
true.
there are some generic truths in here, absolutely. The real truths are for everyone. But the way in which we learn them and do them is A Course in Miracles. It's different. It's not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. That's just a beautiful story. I have a question that's a sidetrack question because you were talking about how much you love the book and carry it with you. Do you use the app at all?
I use the desktop. I've been using it for years, you know,
So
the
that's the web
desktop.
edition, which is, yeah,
Yes.
different than the app because, I found, like, my mother, who was just such an avid reader, her eyes started to fail towards the end of her life, and so she switched over to the app to listen to it all the time, and it was,
Ah,
very meaningful, and a lot of people who, um it comes in differently when you read it. So people who have challenges, like in reading the text, it's too dense, it's too much. If you listen to it in the app, it's a different experience of how to take it in, and it's really interesting because you can listen to it in the car, you can listen to it on headphones as you walk on the beach, um, and
yeah.
it partners differently with different people, so I just wondered if you had tried both.
I do have the app. I downloaded the app. I'm pretty sure I'm, part of the I do have the subscription or whatever it is, but I just haven't used it because I come down here in the morning to my office in my home. I have my Course in Miracles. I've read many different versions of the
Mhm.
course, but the foundation version is the one that sticks with me, and it's the one I recommend to clients and friends. I've passed out more versions of, more copies of the Foundation for Inner Peace version of the course than any other book I've ever passed out. I have a copy in my car. I have a copy in my office. So I keep them all over the place. But what you say about the app is, I didn't even think to listen to it. When you said the app, I'm thinking reading it off the phone rather than listening to it, you
Right.
know?
No,
Yeah.
it's the listening, like, because I for me, I found it so much easier to assimilate because I literally used to talk about how you passed out so many versions of Foundation for Inner Peace, A Course in Miracles. I've literally passed out from reading through the course. It was
Right.
not it was not as easy for me to I've never been an academic, and the hearing of it is different for me. But everyone has his own way, and there's no reason you would need to. It was just curious. This wasn't like a plug for the app. It was literally I was just curious if there was a
Yeah. Yeah.
difference for that.
There's also something to be said, I'm guessing, whereas to listen to it and read along at the same time. For me, that I think that would make it stick,
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
better,
Uh,
maybe. I don't
and there
know.
Hey,
really is a feature in the app where it's like follow the bouncing ball, where the words come as the reading happens. So it
Ah,
I do that
there's
sometimes. I listen to it and then I turn on the text. The text is synchronized with the voice reading it.
yeah.
So you hear it and see it. Because it does come in differently for visual learners versus audio learners. So you kind of get both. I also turn on the music. This is turning into a plug. Welcome to the 30-minute infomercial on the ACIM app. Let me tell you what you walked into here.
very good.
Really
Very
don't
good.
need to push it. Just there's so many flavors out there and so many ways that people come to the course, and some is not the visual way. I'm very artistically visual, but and I'm a writer, which makes this all the more ironic that I love
Right.
words, but I also like hearing them.
That'd be
So,
great if there was
Yeah.
murals, like people in cities just started putting lessons on mural, like just the
that
sides of
would be
buildings and
really
stuff.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really would.
graffiti,
It really would.
course
I would love
graffiti.
it.
Nothing you
Yes.
see, including this mural, means anything.
Yes.
That's fun. I
Yeah.
love
That's
that
great.
idea. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So,
tell us,
Yeah.
is there a course quote that sticks out to you that you find yourself going back to over and over again because it's so helpful?
Yeah. Yeah, there are many, but the one I find myself going to most recently, um, is, "Had you not lacked faith that it could be solved, the problem would be gone." I love that. I'm gonna say it one more time. "Had you not lacked faith that it could be solved, the problem would be gone." And I love this passage because it places the power in my hands. The power of healing is placed in my hands right there. It reminds me that I have something to do here. And the thoughts come to mind. Stop doubting Thomas. We've all heard of the doubting
right.
Thomas. That's I'm raising my hand over here, right? But that's what comes through for me. Stop doubting Thomas. Have faith that with God all things are possible, including moving these mountains and solving this so-called problem of yours, whatever that problem might be. Have faith. Had I not lacked faith, the problem would be gone already. So that right there, I have to start implementing my faith that this problem can be solved with higher power, with my higher power, with the Holy Spirit, with Jesus, with God, however you want to refer to it. And I refer to it as all these things and more. I put my faith there, and that problem can be solved. That problem would be solved if I had already put my faith there. So,
And
also, what comes to mind? Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna to cite that it's from the text in chapter 7 of the call for faith. Had you not lacked faith that it could be solved, the problem would be gone.
Yes, yes, and what comes to mind also when I read that is there's an old Henry Ford quote. Henry Ford, the car maker, it says, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." Right. So where am I placing my faith today? Am I placing my faith that that with God all things are possible? Or am I placing my faith that I can't? Is my self-talk, am I talking myself out of this healing before I even begin? I'm not doing that anymore. That used to be my story. That's not my story anymore. I trust. I do trust in my higher power in God today. In Jesus. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Now, Thomas, what do you do when you get caught in an ego storm and you're just so frustrated? You want to throw the book away and scream, and it doesn't seem like it's working, and you're trying a forgiveness formula and it's just not going well. What do you do to get back on track?
Yeah. Yeah. So, this happens. This still happens. 20 plus years into my life recovery, my healing, my journey. This still happens. And I have to remind myself that this too shall pass. How do I know this too shall pass? Because all the other times these ego storms have hit, they've all passed. These storms pass. So what I actually do in that when I'm suffering through that is I use that suffering as the reminder that there's something that I need to hand over to my God, or to God, right? I hand it over. I take a step back. And when I say that I take a step back, I'm just talking about taking a pause in my mind and welcoming God in, right? The Course says, love waits on welcome, not on time. It goes on to say more than that, but I just stop there. That's enough for me. Love waits on welcome, not on time. What that says to me is God waits on welcome. God is waiting for me to welcome him in order to help me with this situation, right? So what do I do during an ego storm? I welcome love in. I welcome God in. I put it in God's hands, and I trust, and I know that this too shall pass because it always does. It's only my thinking that keeps me prolonged in that storm. There's also another quote from the Course that says, if you knew who walks beside you on this path or on this way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. That's, the last one, love waits on welcome, not on time. That's from the text chapter 13. And this one is from text chapter 18. If you knew who walks beside you on this way that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. Such a great reminder that I'm not alone throughout these storms, these ego storms when they hit. I'm not alone in this. There is something I can fall back on, something that cares, that loves, that wants to help me, that wants to lift me up when I'm down, and I'm grateful for this understanding today. I remember, early on, I was struggling with the idea of the body not being real. I didn't understand this. But, and I'm grateful that I was given an insight during meditation that because I have a body does not mean that I am a body. You know what I mean? The same goes for my story. I have a story. I'm not my story. The same goes for my trauma. Yes, I may have experienced trauma. I may have experienced abuse. I am not my trauma. I may have trauma, but I am not that trauma. I am not my story. I am not my body. I am free, for I am still as God created me. It's a beautiful understanding to have that I am not this, whatever it is I'm suffering through. You know what I mean? I may have a disease or a sickness, but I am not that disease or sickness, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
beautiful. Beautiful quote. Or the question is,
My favorite comfort food, yes?
yes.
I'll tell you, I can eat ice cream for every meal. If I could, I would, and for dessert, and then I'd have it for a snack before I go to bed too.
Yeah.
I love ice cream, but I can't. I wish I could eat it all the time. I can't. I also love a good walnut brownie and a cold glass of milk. Something that right there. But the brownie's got to have walnuts. If it doesn't have walnuts, it's just something's missing for me.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what flavor ice cream?
Lately, I've been on a Haagen-Dazs, what do you call it? It's been, I'm thinking of the name of it right now. Butter pecan. Haagen-Dazs butter pecan is so delicious. And, I'll even say that once in a while, a chocolate chip cookie might find its way crunched up inside the ice cream. I'll throw it in myself, you
Mhm.
know? So, yeah, that's it.
I
The
like
Haagen-Dazs butter pecan.
I like
That's
this.
really
This is like a
fun.
comfort food confessional. I love it.
Yeah.
I have to say in the Haagen-Dazs, it's Passover now, and I got a little, picture from my sister who sent me a picture of Haagen-Dazs, and it was called Haggadah's matzo ball ice cream.
Oh my.
Yeah, and
Oh my.
it's very funny. Um,
Does it so
but you
good.
got me to thinking, Thomas. I mean, yes, all these incredible things you brought here, but what if you could have all your meals be ice cream? Like, you just pureed them all with some heavy cream and froze them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think I would.
Yeah,
I
you just
would.
have to, like, open your taste palette to be able to have everything be that with cream.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I don't think I'd be, one of my hobbies, I have a couple of hobbies, and one of them is pickleball. I don't think I'd be too fast on the pickleball court with, with ice cream for every meal, but,
Like,
yeah,
if you had your spinach that you like cream spinach that you froze,
right.
and figured out cream substitutes like coconut or something, and you had chicken coconut cream frozen and you ate it. It could kind of be a new diet for people that didn't have to be so fattening. It was
I'm
just
open,
creamed and ate. Yeah,
I'm
I
open-minded.
hear that.
I'm open-minded, Tam. If there's some way you can make this happen and I can still play pickleball, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
If
yeah.
if we believe it in the illusion, it can be.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah. Speaking of hobbies, I don't know how much time, I don't want to take up too much time, but there's another hobby I have which has made a difference in my life. And it happened what happened was during the pandemic, everything was on lockdown. And all of a sudden I had this strong inner guidance to grab my camera and go into Manhattan and just start taking pictures of people. And what was great about that is I would go into, and there was so much negativity happening at that time as far as media goes, social media, all that. And what it gave to me was I was able to grab my camera, and there was no traffic on the streets because everything was shut down. Everyone was locked down. So I would take my car into Manhattan. I would be there, like I mentioned earlier, that I a half hour outside of Manhattan. So within a half hour, my car would be parked, and I'd be standing under the arch at Washington Square Park with my camera in my hand. And there were no tourists anywhere. So all the people I was taking pictures of, I was just taking random pictures of life as it happens on the streets. That's it. Street photography is another one of my hobbies, right? So what happened during that time was, first of all those differences, those ideas that divide and separate us, they all went away. And I met so many different walks of life, people from different walks of life in Manhattan, and they were all people that lived there. They weren't, because, like I said, Manhattan was void of tourists at that time. So I joked and said, to my wife and things, that my camera allows me to have random holy encounters on the street, and I'm looking to have a holy encounter with you when I come into the city with my camera. But it's really not a joke because these are holy encounters that I have with these people in the streets, and it's it really speaks to how what we have in common, our commonalities, as opposed to what separates us or what divides us, even though there really we know that the separation never occurred. But there are, through, like I said, through media and social media and all these things, we get these ideas in our head, but it isn't until we lay those ideas aside and go in or interact, and you don't necessarily have to do it with a camera, but that's just how one of the ways I do it, and interact with my brother and my sister on the streets of Manhattan or Brooklyn or wherever it is I am that day, and realize that, like, we're all connected in this. We're all together in this, and I'm so grateful that I started doing that in early 2021 is when I started doing that, and I haven't stopped. I'm still doing it today. I still make time for my street photography. And, but most of the funny thing is that most of the people, because there were no tourists, most of the people who I met there in the city they were all natives of New York City. So now when I go in there, of course the tourists are all back and everything, but I run into the natives and they call me by name and they say, "Hey, Thomas, come on over. Come on over here and hang out with us." They ask how I'm doing. They want to know what's going on in my life. So I've met a whole lot of new friends. These encounters really are and were holy encounters. It's a beautiful thing. So that's all.
No, that's fantastic because, you brought in an old thought form of mine that I didn't realize was still lodged in there. I grew up in Manhattan, and we were such snobs in New York City, that New Jersey was like another country. Like if you were from New Jersey, there were so many stereotypes. You didn't have class. You were stupid. You like all of the things we were fed as children living in Manhattan versus New Jersey. So you brought that memory to me of that snobbery, and you just literally, crossed that line to have New Yorkers say, "Come, what are you doing? Yay." And all of it dissolves.
Yes.
You can't even hold
Yes.
that. Like you were not separate, but you actually were in the mentality of that stereotype New York mentality where no one else is what New Yorkers are.
Yeah. And that's
It's
the
even
same
divided,
mentality.
like, in Queens, like, they're from New York, but not Manhattan. It's such a funny elitist game that
Tribal.
is such
Yeah.
absolute bull, you know?
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank you.
letting me let go of that concept that was no longer even remotely, you know, true, still floating in my consciousness.
I'm glad I can do that.
Thank Yeah, totally.
I bet you got some
And my
great
brother
pictures.
lives in New Jersey, by the way, now. He lives in Princeton, so,
Ah,
it was
nice.
yeah, a big
Yeah. I've done
shift
street
for him.
photography there too. I have.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
You've probably captured some great little random moments.
I really have some of the experiences. I mean, it's for another day, another podcast, probably, if you ever want to hear about some of these miraculous encounters I've had on the streets doing street
Um,
photography. It really is amazing.
you know what
What's
I'd love?
go ahead. What's that?
I would love to see it in a book, believe it or not, in a book. All the
Yeah.
pictures with your stories about it, and it could be an online book, however, but it would be fabulous, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's our possibilities. I'm open. I'm
Yeah,
open. So
Well,
that'd
what's
be
people's
great.
reaction generally when you take their photograph, whether they're just curious or paranoid?
I,
What do you get?
I would say it's 99.8% positive interactions. There's been a couple of times only where I've actually had people get mad at me and yell at me and ask me what I'm doing. And either way, when they ask what I'm doing, I always tell them what I'm doing, capturing life as it unfolds, real life. Once in a while, I'll ask for a portrait, but for the most part, it's all candid street. And, but if someone has a problem with it, I'll come over, I'll show them the photo. I'll ask them if they want a copy of it. Sometimes I'll be able to talk them into, okay, it's a great photo. I'll keep it. I'll take it. Yes, it's okay. I understand what you're doing now. And sometimes they want me to delete it. And guess what? If they want me to delete it, I'll delete it, because I'm not there for any hard feelings. I'm only there for good feelings, So I'll delete it right there in front of them. I'll show them that it's gone. So that's what I do. Not every street photographer will do that, but that's what I do. So
maybe next time you
yeah.
can invite them for a healing ice cream.
Right. Yes. In the village, in the West Village, please.
Oh, yeah.
Can I break a cookie on your ice cream?
Mhm.
Well, Thomas, this has been an absolute joy. Thanks so much for coming on Miracle Voices and sharing your miracle voice. Before we let you go, is there anything you want to share? Maybe the URL to your new photo book or anything like that?
Yeah, no, just, I have a website, sosliferecovery.com. That's sosliferecovery.com. And the Gmail for that is sosliferecovery@gmail.com. So that's where I can be found. That's where I can be reached. And I'll also throw, just for the heck of it, my Instagram out there, for some of my street photography. And that's at t.rich.pictures, at t.rich.pictures. And that's strictly just fun, a part of my hobby. So I created that page in 2021 when I started doing the street photography. So it goes all the way back to the beginning of my street photography journey. Yeah, I'm just grateful to be here. Grateful to be a part of this. The Foundation for Inner Peace and the Course in Miracles have had such an impact on my life. I'm keeping my forgiveness out front in everything I do, everywhere I go. Right alongside of my gratitude there. And I'm grateful for every day, for all my brothers and sisters. And, I actively forgive everything that causes me pain. And this is how we do it. I keep in mind that I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt. That's up to me. I can elect to change those thoughts that hurt, and I can be healed as I let him teach me to heal. So thank you both once again for this opportunity. It's been wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks so much for listening today. Please subscribe to Miracle Voices by hitting the subscribe button on your podcast app. If you are enjoying these conversations, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you use. And lastly, please visit us at miraclevoices.org and join our newsletter so we can stay connected. Until the next podcast, I want to leave you with my favorite course quote: "When you want only love, you will see nothing else."